Yesterday is a history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That is why we call it a present. My name is Andy, and today we are going to learn something very important. In the previous lesson, you learned about how to introduce yourself. In today's lesson, I know you know what your name is, where you live, your hobbies, and what have you. In this lesson, you are going to know how to introduce other people. It can be your teacher, your mother, your friend, or whoever. Without wasting much time, let's go to the classroom. Now, when I ask you to introduce someone, where will you start from? Okay, I know you are thinking about your friend, your mom, your father, or even your uncle. But where should we start from? This is what we are going to do today. Okay, now let me give you this point. The first thing that you have to do when you are asked to introduce someone, the first point is you have to know who you are going to introduce, and then the name of the person. The first one is you have to know who you are going to introduce. And then the second point, what is the name of the person? Okay, for example, I want to introduce my mother. So I'll start from, she is my mother. Or, this is my mother. When I say, this is my mother, it means I'm holding my mom is standing next to me, or my mom is closer to me, and then I want to show you my mother. For example, this is my pen. This is my mother. It means my mom is standing here. Okay? Now, you can also use personal pronouns like, she is my mother. When someone asks you, hey, who are you working with? Oh, she's my mother. Or this is my mother. They are all correct. The next one is you have to know the name of the person. So now you know the person you are going to introduce. Either you are going to introduce your uncle, your friend, your teacher, or whoever. Now, pause the video and tell me who you are going to introduce. Okay, now I know who you are going to introduce. Now let's move on. What is the name of the person you want to introduce? What is the name of the person you want to introduce? Now, it can be anyone. I want to introduce my mother, so I'm going to mention my mother's name. My mother's name is Anna. Or I can also say, her name is Anna. Let me take it again. My mother's name is Anna. Or, her name is Anna. Simple. We are done with the part one. The first point is you have to know the person you are going to introduce. And then the second point is what is the name of the person you are going to introduce. Now, having said that, now let's move on to the next level. But before we move on to the next level, if you are introducing someone, for example, your father, your mother, your uncle, don't say my father's name is, no. Use the possessive noun. For example, you heard me say my mother's name. Mother with an apostrophe X. Possessive noun. My mother's name is. Then you add it. My friend's name is. My uncle's name is. My teacher's name. Okay? Very good. Now, who are you going to introduce? What's the name of the person? Write it down. All right. Now let's move on to the next part. The next part, we are going to talk about where the person lives. Where does the person you are trying to introduce lives, her location? I know in the previous lesson when you were introducing yourself, you said, oh, I live in Muse, I live in Yangon, I live in... But this time around, we are not talking about you. We are talking about your teacher, your friend, your mother, your father, your uncle, or whoever. So now, where does the person you want to introduce lives? Her location. His or her location. That is what we are talking about here. For example, let's see. For me, I'm talking about my mother. So she lives in Muse, in the Shan state of Myanmar. Let me take it again. She lives in Muse, in the Shan state of Myanmar. That is where my mom lives. Okay? Now, where does the person you want to introduce lives? Pause the video and write it down. Okay, now you know where the person lives. Let's say the person lives in Yangon. You can say, oh, he lives in Yangon, in the Yangon region of Myanmar. He lives in Lasho, in the Shan state of Myanmar. Simple. Alright, now let's move on to the third part. How old is the person you are trying to introduce? How old is the person? Being able to tell that my mom or my uncle, my sister, my friend is 10 years old, 11 years old, or whatever, means you know the person you are introducing very well. So always try to seek information from the person you are going to introduce. You can ask your mom, Mom, how old are you? I want to introduce you, so I want to know your age. And then your mom will tell you, okay, I'm 10 years old, I'm 15 years old. Okay, now, since I'm talking about my mom, let me tell you how old is my mom. Okay, she is 45 years old. My mom is 45 years old. How old is the person you are going to introduce? Pause the video and write it down. Okay. Now you got it. Let's move on to the part 4. The part 4. What does the person do? What is his or her job? What does she do? And where does she work? Since I'm talking about my mom, let's see what my mom does and where she works. Okay, my mom is a nurse and she works at Muse General Hospital. I am done. I have finished with what she does and where she works. For example, my mom is a nurse and she works at Muse General Hospital. That is what my mom does and where she works. Where does the person you want to introduce works and what does she do? Okay, pause the video and tell me. Now, let's move on to the 5th part. Now you know where your mom or your uncle or your friend, for example, if your friend is a student, just say he is a student. That is the work he or he does. Say he's a student. He goes to school at ICTC. Simple. That is her job. Now, let's move on to part 5. Hobbies. What are the hobbies of the person you are trying to introduce? Knowing the hobbies of your friend, your mom, your father, your uncle, your teacher is very important. This shows that you know the person very well. So now, let me ask you, what does your mom or your dad, your uncle, or whoever you want to introduce, what are his or her hobbies? Since we are talking about me, let me give you my example. My mom enjoys playing basketball at the weekends, and she also reads a lot of books in her free time. Let me take it again. My mom enjoys playing basketball, and she also reads a lot of books at the weekend. Okay, now let's move on. Now, you can also talk about the pets, her favorite color, or whatever, but we are doing it in the context of this video. I will not bring his or her favorite color, but in your video, when you are asked to introduce someone, you can bring the person's favorite color, her favorite pet, and whatever. But let's move on to the last part. Maybe this will be the last point you are going to use to introduce the person you are going to introduce. Now the last part is, why do you like the person you are introducing? Let's say you are introducing your teacher. Let's say you are introducing your teacher. What does your teacher? Why do you like your teacher? Why is she or he your favorite teacher? Why do you like him? Let's say you are introducing your friend. Why is it that there are a lot of people in ICTC, but you chose that person to be your friend? Why? That should be very important to us. So, for example, I decided, because I like food, I like eating a lot. So I decided to say, I like my mom because she cooks a lot of food that I like all the time. I like my mom because she cooks my favorite food all the time. That is why I like my mom. Now, why do you like the person you are trying to introduce? So you tell me why you like the person you are introducing. Pause the video and write it down. Now, with this, we have already gotten about 6 points that you can use to introduce another person. Now, I'm going to read my example through the video to you. And you are going to, after the video, you are going to use the same process to introduce someone. It can be your friend, your mom, your dad, your uncle, or whoever, even your teacher. So let me read my example to you. My mother's name is Anna. She lives in Muse, in the Shine state of Myanmar. Okay? She is 45 years old. She is 45 years old. My mom is a nurse and she works at Muse General Hospital. The next one, my mom enjoys playing basketball at the weekends, and she also likes reading a lot in her free time. I like my mom because she cooks my favorite food all the time. Now, it is your turn to introduce someone. Let's start with, who are you going to introduce? That is your first question. Who are you going to introduce? Your second question, what is the name of the person? Your third question, where does the person live? His or her location. Okay? What are his or her hobbies? What are his or her hobbies? And where and what does the person do? Where does he work? What does he do? Is he a teacher? And where does he teach? That is your assignment. And the last part, you should be able to tell me why you like the person you are introducing, because there are a lot of people around, but you chose that person to introduce. Tell me the reason why you chose that person to introduce. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you.